Adam considers it an honor to represent the people of the 8th District in the halls of Congress, where he continues to make his mark as a leader on economic issues. As the Vice Chair and top Republican on the Joint Economic Committee and a senior member and Trade Subcommittee Chairman on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee, he's one of the harshest critics of Washington's spend now, borrow tax later mindset. He's Deputy Whip for the House Republicans and board member of the Conservative Republican Study Committee, honored by the National Taxpayers Union for having one of the most aggressive spending cut agendas on Capitol Hill. He's repeatedly named a hero of the taxpayers, a defender of liberty, a small business champion, and a super friend of the seniors. He's known in Congress for his strong efforts on the federal sunset law, which would put expiration dates on federal programs and agencies. What grounds Kevin are his young sons, Will's 12, Sean 9, and his wife, Kathy Brady. And he commutes to Washington until they raise their family in Texas. The second of 5 children from a Korean War vet, is very proud of his active duty Army brother and a staunch supporter of our military and veterans. Before serving in Congress, he was a Chamber of Commerce executive and a member of the Texas House of Representatives, where he represented Grimes County for 6 years, and was recipient of the 5 Education Texas Award in '94, nominated by the Grimes County JC.
That's right.
His work with small businesses guides him in Washington. And already a friend of Navasota and Grimes County, please introduce Congressman Kevin Brady.
A huge tax cliff at the end of this year, unprecedented really in America, that will hit the pocketbook, Brad, of everyone in this room and everyone in this country. So with your permission, let's start here. The current issues, we've got key differences between the House budget this passed and the President's budget that he's pushing forward. We have introduced a highway bill and are trying to get the votes together that I think is going to help accelerate highway projects in our part of Texas. We've approved an energy bill that can create a bunch of jobs, and looking at that tax cliff that we talked about has a real impact. So let's start. This is, the President and House Republicans have 2 different visions of the way this country ought to go. This chart was put together by the Office of Management and Budget, that's the White House and Congressional Budget Office. It shows our debt as a share of the economy. That's sort of the way they measure how financially sound you are as a country. You can tell our high water mark used to be World War II, where we dropped everything to be a war economy to win that war. But you can tell where the spending is going now, the red ink of the debt. You can see over the years it just goes to unimaginable levels. That's the budget that was proposed from the White House about a month ago. We passed out of the House just before Easter break a different vision of where we think the country ought to go. This is a different path. It changes the course, and what I like about the House budget is that it doesn't just seek to balance the budget, which we need to do, but we're so deep in debt, you gotta go farther than that. You gotta start paying off our national debt, paying it down. What I like about this budget is it doesn't just balance, it actually sets a goal, long term, of paying off our national debt. So we would have not only the strongest economy in the world, but we would have the strongest financial country in this world, which I think is exactly the right road for us. Next one. We look over to Europe, and we look at Greece, Italy, and Ireland, Spain, really roiled the stock markets around the world yesterday. You look at their debt crisis, and you say, anyone paying attention, how could they let themselves get in that position? But look where America is compared. If you look at the 5 real shaky countries in Europe, look where our debt is already. Before this spending spree really takes off, every economist tells us that when your debt is almost the size of your economy, which we are, if you're 90% or above, the yellow lights are flashing in May. Your economy starts to slow. It's just like in your business or your home. If all your money is going to pay your debts and your credit cards, there's not enough money to grow your company, to grow your family. The same thing happens in the economy. So we're already in a flashing yellow, serious problem. And as you can tell from this chart, spending is just starting to take off. The President, I'm not going to criticize the President, he really believes strongly believes that we need to spend more to get the economy going, and you lose more people ought to pay higher taxes. I have serious concerns about that approach. The president's budget would be the $4 trillion deficit in a row. $1 trillion deficit. When I first went to Congress, our whole budget wasn't that much more than $1 trillion. Today, we're running that deep red ink. It adds about $11 trillion of new debt to our country over the next decade. And under the budget, this budget, we would be the largest federal government in American history, larger even than World War II. And there's a real price. That's one of the issues we as taxpayers have to decide. Are we willing to send that money to support the largest government in American history? He's proposing about $2 trillion in tax increases. A lot of them, the bulk of it hits families and small businesses, because in America, a lot of our companies, especially our small businesses, don't file taxes as corporations. They file them as individuals like you and I do. And so all these tax increases hit small business in a major way. And so he's proposing in his budget income tax increases, reductions in charitable contributions, so that I know from a chamber perspective, I know in work, in our Rotary Club and our church, people who, stayed in school extra to get that degree, who've risked and worked hard to build a successful business, professionals in your community, those are the ones you count on to jumpstart your chamber fundraising effort, to finish United Way at the end of the year, kick off that scholarship program at your civic club. So this proposal sends that money to Washington instead of leaving it here in Grimes County. It's proposing increases on capital gains and dividends, which dividends, other than Social Security, dividends are the biggest source of revenue for our seniors. That's what they live off in their retirement. So raising taxes on dividends hits people in the pocketbook who actually need every dime in their retirement. He's proposing an increase in the death tax. He's proposing to double tax U.S. companies competing overseas. That hits a lot of our Texas companies. I just did an employee town hall meeting yesterday at Hewlett-Packard down in Cyfair, down 249, driving down there. They've got 10,000 workers in the Houston region. Most of their sales is overseas. Most of their jobs are right here in Texas, in America. Double taxing them when they compete is going to cost them real jobs. He's proposing $85 billion in new energy taxes, a lot of us on Texas, and increased on local real estate partnerships. One of the things that worries me is, because I serve on Social Security subcommittee, I'm number 2 Republican on that committee. Social Security and Medicare are key programs. They're in trouble, and we need to propose reforms now and act now to save them, but it's not included in the president's budget. So I have some real concerns about it. He does propose $4 trillion in savings, which is good, but you can tell, here's our debt increase over the next decade. $4 trillion sounds like a lot. It's a drop in the bucket. I mean, at one time it was a lot. It's tiny. We've got to do better than that if we're going to get our financial house in order. This is the tax increases by a pie chart. You can tell a lot of them hit small businesses and individuals. A lot of them hit you job creators in the economy. This is one of my favorite charts, not because it's depressing, but because it sort of shows the future of our country if we don't change our ways. This chart shows the amount of income that we send to support the federal government over the years, for the past 70 years and the next 60 years, and then our spending as a nation. As you can tell, 2 key things about this chart. One is that you can tell, even though there's peaks and valleys, consistently over 7 decades, we in America, we send about 19% of our economy, we send it to Washington to support the federal government. Highs and lows, all that, it evens out. After our economy gets back up to speed, we'll be at that level as well. We'll rebound all the way. But as you can tell, that isn't nearly enough to cover all the spending that's already in the pipeline. We're right here. It's not going to dip, in fact, and it's going to take off. This is a sea of debt like we've never imagined. You could, go back, stay here. You could double everyone's taxes in this room, double everyone's taxes in America, and you would still not have a balanced budget in America. We could confiscate every dime that the wealthy earn. It still wouldn't balance the budget. You cannot tax your way back to a balanced budget in America today because of that spending. The other part, the story this chart tells, relates to young people. Because, as Bert said, I live in Montgomery County. I commute to work every week, almost 2 million miles, flying back and forth to stay in touch with the community we represent, raise our kids here. So I'm always thinking about federal issues like a family issue. And what this chart tells us is that a baby born today in Grimes County, their share of all that red ink is already $47,000. So a baby born today already owes Uncle Sam a new Lexus. By the time that they're 13 years old, if we don't change our ways, they'll owe a second Lexus. And by the time they're 22 and they're finishing college at A&M or Sam Houston or wherever, getting ready to start their life, they'll owe Uncle Sam a third Lexus. Now, the good news is young people don't actually buy luxury sedans for the federal government, but they pay the price a different way. They pay the price through a sluggish economy, loaded down by all that debt. They pay it through higher interest rates and higher taxes. So if we don't change our way, a young person, at a time they're getting ready, Councilman, to start their own life, there'll be fewer jobs for them to go after. And if they get that job, they'll have less money in their pocketbook as a result. So there's a real price for the next generation of the spending that's going on today. This is from the President's budget, Office of Management budget, that's the White House. This is America's debt as they forecast it. Again, amazing levels. This is kind of clever. ABC News took the federal budget and they knocked off a bunch of zeros at the end and just presented it like it was your own family's budget. And here's what it looks like. I apologize if you went. We would spend $38,000 this year. We'd bring in only $29,000. So we'd add about $9,000 in debt. But look at what we would owe on our credit card. Over $150,000. How many years can your family do that? How many years could this chamber, this county, any business here do that? Probably one, and that's it. We can't continue this approach. On highway bill, I talked about a little, the way they do highway bills in Washington is every 5 to 6 years, they reauthorize the basis. They take a look at what worked, what didn't, and so they extend it this way. Since I've been in Washington, or at least in Congress, this is the first transportation bill that actually starts talking about how do you get a better bang for the buck for the money we spend at the fuel pump and send up there to Washington. The bill has no earmarks. The last one they did had over 6,000 special interest earmarks in it. This has 0. That's appropriate. No increase to gas taxes. We can't afford to pay more at the pump. It actually dedicates highway taxes for highway projects. That probably seems like a no-brainer, but by some estimates, about 30% of all those highway dollars get diverted into other projects. Hike and bike trails, which I love, but hike and bike trails aren't congested. Don't get us to work, don't get our products around the country. Daycare centers, transportation museums, it's time to end that. Highway taxes ought to go to highway projects. The bill does that. It eliminates 70 programs and it streamlines a lot of the red tape to give states like Texas more control so you can move these projects faster. Here's some examples. This is the way our highway transportation system is set up today. Huge bureaucracy. This is what we take it to. Still a lot of agencies, but a lot more streamlined and less bureaucratic. And this next chart shows you that if you got a project with federal dollars, it can take up to 15 years to get through all the red tape from finish to actual get the project going. 15 years. We've all driven on roads that took 15 years. We know how frustrating it is, and it drives up the cost. In this bill, we cut the time in half, and we give the states leeway to be able to, like, for example, run permitting concurrently, so there's a double or triple track while we're doing it. States will have the chance to accelerate those projects even more. Not perfect, but I think a step in the right direction. We're struggling to get the 5-year bill through the House right now, trying to get the votes assembled to do that. The Senate's passed a 2-year bill, doesn't have very many reforms. I don't think it does. It sort of keeps things the way they are today. We're not applying enough of our fuel dollars to these types of projects. I don't think the status quo is good enough anymore. So I'm hopeful, Bill, that we can put this together, get it passed, because for fast growth states like Texas, fast growing regions like ours, this is critical. Economic development is critical. Congestion is critical to safety. So I'm hopeful we can get it done. And the way we pay for it, instead of doing increased gas taxes, what we said is, why don't we grow the economy and take the revenue from new energy and help pay for these new roads. So that's what we do. In the energy bill, we approved this in the House. We're waiting for the highway bill so we can send them both over together. But in the House approved energy bill, we create 1 million new jobs by doing a couple of things. One, we triple production offshore. We require the federal government to unlock a lot of the coasts that have been locked away, including the eastern Gulf of Mexico. That'll triple production over the next 15 years for our region. That also means a ton of jobs. We put those companies back to work. We require federal government to start leasing oil shale on federal lands around the country. We open up that tiny part of Alaska that was set aside for energy production. We improve the Keystone Pipeline.